Hey friends, this is the Meme Team podcast, where we talk about the logic behind virality, because marketing isn't just logic, it's culture, and our podcast decodes both. I am one of your co-hosts, Amanda Natividad.
And I'm the other one. I'm Sonia Vashez. Hi. Welcome to the show. We're going to get started on a few things that we've been talking about. This latest one is another rebrand, MSNBC. It's being rebranded to MS Now, which stands for My Source for News, Opinions, and the World.
Yeah, it sounds like Microsoft Now to me.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's what it's coming from, right? From the MS. Wasn't that what Microsoft, because they bought the company?
It was, yeah, but Microsoft, I think, has long since divested its shares.
Oh.
So it's not a Microsoft company anymore.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's a weird move for me. The thing that really stuck out to me is the whole idea of my source for news, opinions, and the world. I know that it's supposed to be the opinion section, but it sounds like what they're saying is we are going to give you which opinions you should have.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, to your point, my source for opinions. So we can't form our own opinions. We're just going to go straight to the source to tell us how to think.
Who actually watches, news on TV, or who are they targeting? Because I mean, I don't see millennials or Gen Z paying attention to this. So maybe that's the point. They'll be going after, Gen Xers and boomers.
The logo looks pretty plain, MS Now in a pretty basic font. So it's like they want to be taken more seriously, maybe. It looks pretty lifeless or faceless to me. We can't really have any other opinion, then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, maybe somebody's really on board for it. I'm super excited about it. Who knows?
Maybe someone is excited.
Yeah, maybe
we'll
someone
let you know
somewhere.
We'll let you know if we hear of that person.
Yes, exactly. Okay, on to the next thing. So after 5 years of running Duolingo social media, Zarya Parvez is leaving. So that's wild. We've been tracking Duolingo and their social team for a while here. I think we talked about them on 2 different segments about, kind of how they've really embodied that unhinged marketing. So I'm really curious to see where they're going to go now, right? Was this, under her direction? And is it going to continue on that way? Or is the next person that comes in going to start molding it a little bit more into what they're like? But yeah, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I mean, I guess I'm curious what Parvez will be doing next. Did she announce her next move?
No, so I saw it because Rachel Carton is interviewing her. She flew out to Pennsylvania to interview her. So I suppose I assume it's going to come out in that the piece when it comes out. So we'll be keeping an eye out, and yeah, I'm curious to see where she'll end up next.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's good for her. I hope she takes a well-deserved break.
Yeah.
I mean, what she accomplished at Duolingo is pretty legendary.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, one of those things that we see, only once every, once a decade or so. So I hope she gets some, nice time off, and yeah, I'll be excited to see what she does next.
Yeah, for me, it's one of those things where it's one of those one of the main examples of social media being well directed and regimented in terms of what their vision is, what the mission is, how they're putting themselves out there. It really helps to fight that whole oh, social media interns are going crazy on social media. It's no, these are legit jobs that are being held by people that really know their shit. And this is one of those examples that has really thrown them into a new stratosphere of for the brand, but then also the company itself, the numbers, so much I'm sure can be attributed to their social media campaigns across the board, across all channels.
Yeah, and I think Adweek reported that they will be hiring, I think, 2 people to replace her. So
well, there you go.
The strength of at least she has the strength of at least 2 marketers. I'm sure more.
I'm sure the next people that try to fill her shoes are gonna have to, have a run for their money. Then I want to highlight this tweet that Justine Moore tweeted out, giving us a new angle for the backlash against GPT. She's saying that it wasn't the sycophancy that people missed, but more the personality. And that is one thing that Amanda and I talked about last time, where it's like we noticed that the voice just became a lot more corporate and bland. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me because I mean, a lot of what we're telling, or what I'm telling clients is like, put personality into like what you're writing, into like your posts, into the way that you're talking about your company in order to, separate yourself out from all the corporate jargon that like nobody likes and nobody understands and nobody wants to hear or pay attention to. So I think this actually is a key point for me. So I'll be interested to see if they, kind of instill a little bit more of the personality.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I do appreciate the distinction. I think what I wanna call out here in her tweet is, um, very different issue from sycophancy, and we shouldn't conflate the 2, uh, meaning, like, the fun personality and sycophancy. We shouldn't conflate the 2 when it comes to understanding how users react to model behavior. The huge majority of people don't want a sycophant model. No one trusts an LLM that says you're right all the time. So I think that's super interesting because that's not at odds with the people who like miss their AI girlfriend, right? An
Yeah.
AI girlfriend doesn't have to be a sycophant. um, but yeah, I mean,
I
it
don't know.
does.
I don't know. Like, yeah, let's actually dive into that because from the ones that I'm seeing, it kind of is, right? You have a girlfriend that like, wants everything to be about you, right? They're more listening than they are talking, and maybe they are having some like back and forth, but like, I think that's a major thing that we've called out a couple times before. Is that they don't respond in the way that most, friends or, girlfriends that like, push back on you and push you to be, a better person respond. So I would quibble with that. But I don't think that's the majority, right? So I think,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's not like 90% of
right.
ChatGPT users have a girlfriend or boyfriend. You're right. Yeah,
I mean, I hope not.
I really hope not.
God. I was thinking, funny, I might cut this out later, but I was thinking, does that leave room for OpenAI to become a dating service going forward? Because it knows so much more about you and you're telling it what you want, what you don't want. And could it be like, hey, we found this like person that could, like the same things you do and like could, be a good person for you to like actually hang out with?
Oh, interesting. I wonder.
Yeah. It's a little like, it still makes me like, but I don't know.
Oh
We see
yeah,
so many things become dating services. Like,
yeah.
can it do better than Tinder, Grinder, Hinge, all those?
I mean, it probably could do better, but it wouldn't be incentivized to, right? Wouldn't it be incentivized to, like Tinder, just
Keep you
continue to
going
create bad
forever.
experiences so that you never cancel your subscription?
Yeah, yeah. I think they'll create the ad network before they think about creating a
I
dating network.
I agree. Can you imagine I think there are a lot of ways I could really mess with that. I don't think they'll do it, which is to say that, like, well, if they find someone based on your Chat GPT behaviors, like, "Oh, we
Mhm.
think you'll get along with this person," but 6 months in, they go, "Actually, we think we found someone even better.
No, yeah.
Don't you wanna meet this person?" How
That would be
evil.
crazy.
Yeah.
How funny. Um, Okay, and then the last thing was to highlight another company that we've talked about before. That's Delve. They did the doormat campaign that we talked about that we found fun. So apparently they also did a donuts campaign. And then somebody turned it around on them and sent them donuts and then told them that he's applying for a growth position. So I like that it was like, they're also taking that as like, it's a way to get to us and to like reach us, like, using our own ideas, to at least get him the interview. That's another good story, right? They're able to, talk about it on social that like this happened. And then also if he does get hired, that'll always be like a thing that he'll like, point back to like, hey, I, sent the donuts to the company and then they ended up hiring me because of it.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's a good thing about person-led brands
Mhm.
is it gives way to these kinds of interactions a lot more easily than being a faceless brand.
Yeah, exactly. So last week we had the bonus episode talking about Taylor Swift and how she promoted her album, The Life of a Showgirl. and everything she did on the podcast, the way that, she was marketing it on that, and then, everything, the Easter eggs before that. So this time I want to kind of go a different angle, which is to highlight how everybody kind of, jumped in on the fun and started, changing their profiles, coming out with ways to kind of participate in it. And I wanted to talk about just like the idea of the monoculture and how we're so starved to have things that all of us know about and can participate in happily and like have it be a fun thing as opposed to so many like negative things that are happening that it makes sense that so many companies kind of, trend hopped onto this. And I've heard some, folks were highlighting here somebody who thinks it was wrong, calling it lazy marketing, saying that like, companies shouldn't do it. I really like quibble with that because I think the bigger thing here is that like Taylor Swift is somebody that like everybody knows at this point. She's reached like this status within our culture of like having the highest grossing tour of all time that brought in over $1 billion. It had monoculture reach and buying power, and so because so many of us have heard of her and are along for the ride, plus she's got like the whole Swifty army that like jumps onto these onto like the brands and the tweets and everything and is there like in support of her and like the companies. For me, it makes sense that companies want to participate in this, and I don't see it as a bad thing. I mean, we've talked about on the episode with Chi that trend hopping is like not a strategy, right? Like it's not something that you want to like rely on as like your main way of like posting on social and like creating content, and I agree with that. I just think that this is like another level, like a way bigger level of like participation that everybody can get in on in a fun way without ruining it for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that trendjacking is not a strategy. But it is more of like it's how you do things.
Hmm.
It's like the way that you talk to your audience. It's the way you relate to them. And sure, if your brand doesn't align with Taylor Swift for whatever reason, like if it doesn't make sense for you, if or like if you have good
Like,
reason
are
to
there
believe.
brands that wouldn't like
I mean,
it
I
wouldn't,
don't know.
mix with?
Right. No, I
That's
know,
like
but
the
it's
thing. I think it was like one
yeah.
of those where it's like this is one of the only moments that it seems anybody can jump in on this.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
which is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to like highlight here. It won't
Yeah.
happen for everything. I don't think that's like possible. Even with like movies or TV shows that like reach like a level of like, monoculture ish, they still don't have that many fans that are actually like watching it on a weekly basis. So
Mhm.
that's why I think like the Taylor Swift, like it's a new level of like everybody kind of knows of her. Plus, now that like she's with Travis Kelsey, that's brought in this whole other like fandom of like the NFL fandom that like fine, maybe not all of them are like fans of her, right? Like some of the men are displeased that she's showing up like at the games and there and that or is taking attention away from the game or whatever. But the NFL like social media account did tweet in, I actually posted on their social media channels like in support of her. So, it's not I still kind of see it as like, okay, they're being welcoming of her and like the new fans that she's, bringing over to them.
What I might say is it's reactive marketing. Like if you're
Hmm.
gonna rush to like be like, I need to be first to have this hot take and show everyone that I'm dunking on them and that I'm better than this. I mean, do you?
Hmm.
But I just think though that like I mean, I overall think, look, if it doesn't make sense for your brand, like if it's not within your voice or how you communicate with your audience, then sure, like it's not a fit. But at the same time, it's not like these brands were doing massive campaigns around Taylor Swift. I wouldn't even say,
Hmm.
I mean, were any of them even doing campaigns or were they doing a one-off social media post?
I
Because
mean,
a social
more
media
like
post isn't it's not a campaign.
right.
And I'm just saying like
No, no,
if they
I
have
agree.
if they're showcasing like an orange product
Yeah.
like on their Instagram grid, that's not a campaign.
Yeah.
And that's just to say like they were doing a fun post for the day and I don't think it's a big deal. So in a way my opinion is sort of who cares? Does it matter as long as people are having fun? That's kind of like my general opinion.
Yeah, agreed. And so I think that that's it. Here we'll show the image of a lot of the ones that were called out. Duolingo, Elmo had the number 12. Tic Tac, Dunkin' like changed the orange that they
Mhm.
usually have for their brand. Pantone came up with like the specific color of orange it was. Saw the Empire State Building, Kansas City courthouse lit up in orange. So I think it was a fun way to get so many people to participate. And something that's like fun. And so a lot of them ended up, bringing in orange, or like highlighting orange and like the green, in some way. Um, so yeah, overall, I just kind of like saw it as fun, and I agree. I hadn't thought about that, Amanda. That like a social post is not a social media like campaign. It's
Right,
just you're
right. Yeah.
participating in something that
Right.
everybody else is. So why wouldn't you? It's just a
Yeah.
way to have fun, and I think well, that one person is being a party pooper.
Yeah.
you
Like,
know.
yeah. I mean, like, what's wrong with that? It's just, I think the other thing too is in this age of like where there are just so many platforms,
Mhm.
so many networks, everyone has their own way of getting news information. It's harder and harder. Like there's no monoculture anymore.
Right.
It's like there are just tons of subcultures.
Mhm.
And this is one of the few things that is like this, meaning Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the very few things now that she is a monoculture
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah.
So I think my point of view too is just these opportunities are rare, and it's
Mhm.
kinda nice to just feel part of something.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that as a Swiftie. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm an extremely casual fan. It's
Yeah.
like I like some of her songs. She's obviously talented, whatever, she's cool. But I just mean, like, it feels nice
Mhm.
to like something with other people.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that was kind of like the thing. And honestly, that's one of the only people that I've seen kind of be negative about it. Most everybody else has kind of like jumped in on the fun, which I think was a breath of fresh air for I mean, a lot of us that are, terminally online and just see so much negativity happening all the time. That it was kind of nice to just all be in celebrating like one thing for like the day.
Yeah.
um so, I mean, yeah, that kind of encapsulates it for me. It's just like because there's so few things in a monoculture, or things that reach that level, when companies have the opportunity to jump in on something that everybody can relate to or everybody kind of understands the joke on, you kind of have to jump in. The last thing I'll say is that we've talked about this, right? Like the whole idea of keeping up with like pop culture as a marketing strategy. And I think that this is kind of like the perfect example of that, where it's like we all knew what was kind of happening. So you kind of do want to like join in the fun because like you're going to be able to um bring in new customers and to say like, hey, we're in on this joke too. Like we celebrate Taylor Swift. We like her fans. We like her, her music. Come, be with a brand that like understands you and that like wants you to like buy from them, and without saying it's like in a way of like, come like, buy from us. It's like, hey, we're just like you. Like we also celebrate, Taylor Swift and like her new album that's coming out. And this is how we're playing with, with the in group of like, we're all in on the joke and come participate with us. They're trying to go after Taylor Swift's audience in order to kind of capture more of them and bring them over to like their brand and like what they're selling and stuff, which I think
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Maybe the only critical thing I would say against it is, and this is a soft criticism, when people are rushing to do the orange thing, they might be risking looking the same as everyone else,
Mhm.
right? Because there was like Olipop and Poppy, two like probiotic,
Sure.
healthy-ish soda brands. They had their orange cans. I mean, and I say soft criticism because it's not that big of a deal. It's not it's not like everyone erased all their posts and did a grid post that was like very special for this thing, right? So it's kind of like on one hand, yeah, you might be looking like everybody else. On the other hand, it's just for a day. Does it really matter? So, I don't know.
Oh my God, I just saw, I want to call it out because we were talking about this a couple episodes ago, but Tropicana did an orange with the straw in it, as opposed to like the, orange box of, orange juice box or whatever. They did the orange. So good on them,
Wait,
bringing
what do you
back
mean?
their
Wait,
old.
they did in support of Taylor Swift?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
That's fun. So they brought
Yeah,
it back just for her.
yeah.
Oh, that's fun with it's the sparkly orange.
And the
I love
straw in
that.
it.
See, that's fun. Come
Yeah,
on. People, let us
exactly.
have fun.
I know, right? I think you're right though. Like, you want to make it more about how it kind of like fits with your brand and like how it makes sense, not just that you're, doing the orange just to do it. The ones that I preferred more were the ones that like this orange, right? Where it's like you're bringing it back to your brand, or like the Dunkin' is like updating the orange color, it's not just you're tacking on, the font and like the colors for like no reason and just kind of doing like that. But so maybe take that extra time, the extra couple hours to come up with like something that really makes sense for your brand and not just jump on the trend to jump on the trend.
Yeah. Although now we should keep an eye out on, because the album drops October 3rd. We
Mm-hmm.
should keep an eye out for any brands who might be doing a campaign then. What if we
That's
have,
true.
because there's an easy way to do some kind of campaign if you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
without needing like Taylor Swift's permission.
Yeah.
You could start selling like sparkly orange stickers.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? And
That's
just not say
true.
anything. Be like, oh,
Yeah.
limited time only. Get your orange
I'm sure
cup.
there's going to be
I
a
don't know.
lot of companies doing
Yeah,
some sort of something around the time.
yeah,
Yeah, because I mean, most people are gonna know that that's the date, and there's gonna be stuff happening around that time. So yeah, I wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised if they do
yeah.
that.
I mean, Mean Girls Day, right? October 3rd.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so much going on. All right, now I want to talk about tariffs, which is really exciting. No, I really
Yeah.
want to talk about tariffs and Coach, and this is me kind of, we'll say, like putting kind of a stake in the ground and saying, I don't think the tariffs are going to affect Coach that much. So here's
So
how
Coach handbags and
Coach
yeah,
handbags,
the
yes.
brand, the fashion brand.
The fashion brand, Coach, known for Coach, Coach Outlet, and more recently, CoachTopia. Okay, so we'll start here. Now, it's going to start out kind of dry, but it's important for the context. So, for years, brands could avoid these certain kinds of import taxes on smaller shipments or shipments that are worth less than $800 thanks to a trade rule called de minimis. So, that loophole is now closed thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill. And that, along with new tariffs, means that Coach, well, any brand really, right? But Coach or Tapestry, which is the parent company of Coach and Kate Spade, which, surprise, surprise, are sister brands. All right. So
Hold
obviously,
on. Let me.
Tapestry is not the only company that's facing this, right? It's any company that's importing goods from pretty much anywhere
Anywhere?
else, right? So, but just to give this one example of Coach, they're going to be faced with extra costs. And now they have to decide, are they going to raise prices, cut costs, or eat the costs? Now, the short of it is, it looks like they're going to do some mix of raising prices and cutting costs. So, Coach CEO Todd Kahn says that prices of Coach will go up, but probably not hugely so. Like, it's probably only going to be like $10 to $15 per bag. But however,
I mean, that's
these
still substantial, right? Like, does it say like for
maybe.
the amount of like bag, like starting at like which prices?
No, I don't think they've said yet.
Oh, okay.
So who knows? Like, what if it's not going to apply to all bags? Like,
Hmm.
I would imagine they would try to be strategic
Mm-hmm.
and maybe raise prices on the products that sell the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like raise prices most there.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't know, right? It could be something
Yeah.
like that. And then the other thing to know is these tariffs are disproportionately affecting Kate Spade more because
Hmm.
they have more international stores. So what they're going to do is they're going to cut the number of Kate Spade bags by about 30% across all regions, which also makes sense because Kate Spade isn't quite as popular as it used to be. So Coach has grown massively in popularity over the recent years, and Kate Spade has declined a little bit, but still pretty popular. And so shares of parent company Tapestry fell 14% upon this news. But it's worth noting that throughout the year, Tapestry shares have risen about 74%. Now, this is largely due to the appeal of Coach and Coach bags and the appeal that they've won with younger consumers. So now I want to talk about how Coach won.
Yeah.
Do you have a Coach bag or do you have an opinion?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been following Coach since I was younger. Kate Spade as well, but yeah, that one's kind of fallen more out of that one. Recent, let's see. I don't buy. I mean, that's one of the wonders of handbags, right? Is they last so much longer. But I do remember there's that one like viral TikToker who talks about the different brands and like which handbags are worth paying for, and Coach has consistently come up as like one of the best brands like for the value. It's that one where he like cuts open the handbag to show
Oh,
you what
yeah.
the leather actually looks like, and Coach has consistently been like not just more affordable but like actually worth the amount that you're paying for it. So when I saw that, I'm like, great, I can just buy another Coach like handbag and like keep that. So and that must be another reason why they're still doing so well, is because
Yeah.
they're known as being a good product.
Yeah, they totally are. Like, I feel like anytime I see the brand, like mentions of Coach going viral or people talking about them, there are always people rushing into the comments to say like they have such great quality leather.
Mhm.
Like I had my Coach bag for years and it's still in really great condition, which is awesome to see. I mean,
Yeah.
I will say my first designer bag was a Coach bag.
Mm.
It was some kind of small shoulder bag. It was
Mhm.
lime green and it had red ladybugs. It was part of some spring collection. And I love
Mm.
it. I still have
Yeah.
it. And it was a graduation gift.
Nice.
So it's special. What was your first designer bag?
Um, it was a Dooney& and Burke. Remember when those were
I
a
do.
thing
Yeah.
back in high school? Yeah, I had
Yeah.
one of those with, like, the hearts on it,
Oh, I
the Lindsay
remember those.
Lohan ones. Yeah,
Yes. So cute.
and then from that, I felt like I graduated more to, Kate Spade and, like, Coach, Marc Jacobs, but then have consistently, I would say Coach has been, like, more of the consistent, like, purchase that I make. I'll go back and, have the different colors. I feel like, with handbags, like, you have to have, like, a black one and, like, a brown one, and then, like, one fun, like, red one or something.
Yeah.
So those I have all of those in, like, Coach.
Yeah. I feel like there's a timelessness to Coach.
Yes.
I mean,
Mhm.
like, yeah, they have some trendier styles,
Right.
but like as a brand, like as a whole, I feel like because they're pretty well known as having good quality leather, that puts them in that timeless kind of bucket.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's like the thing, right? It's like once you start, I feel like for me, it's like I reach a certain age and I'm like, okay, I want that timeless piece that's just gonna go with everything else. And then I'll buy some of the funner, like, different colors, or like something that's more, like glittery or something. But that's like I rarely use that, right? I mean, it used to be a thing when I used to go out, which I don't do anymore as much.
So let's talk about how Coach won. All right. So first, through what we will call a positive flywheel and a lot of data. So 5 years ago, it's 2020. Todd Kahn was promoted to CEO of Coach, and around that, sales of the Tabby bag started to decline. But meanwhile, the consumer insights team had a lot of data and a lot of insights. A lot of this through research, like shop-alongs, where they shop with consumers and talk to them while they're shopping,
Mhm.
and they learned that overall Gen Z's sentiment towards Coach as a brand was pretty lukewarm. Like I think they just thought of it as sort of like their mom's brand or for older
For
women.
millennials.
Yeah, right.
And we know that anything that's millennials, they think is uncool.
Yeah. But they also learned that Gen Z really liked the Tabby bag. Coach uncovered a really unique customer segment, which they call the timeless Gen Z. They have a bigger lifetime value. And it's because they're willing to invest a little more into pieces that they think are going to be timeless or classic. So you think about it, right? Like Gen Z right now, they are what? Like some of them are maybe getting their first promotions. Maybe some of the younger ones are going into their first adult job right out of college. So this is a segment that, probably has some money to spend. And, Coach is expensive, but it's not Louis Vuitton or
Mhm.
Gucci expensive, right? Like it's not thousands of dollars expensive, it's several $100s, right? So this is an audience segment that is willing to buy, right? They're willing to invest a little more, and then because they're younger, they're going to they can theoretically have a much bigger lifetime value because they have the opportunity to grow with Coach. So going back to the tabby, right? Traditionally, what Coach would have done with declined sales is they would have slowly removed the bag from the full price stores. They would have marked it down, put it in outlets, and then maybe like a year later, they would introduce a bag with very similar attributes. And maybe they would call it the Gabby, and that cycle would begin again. But instead, they did something different. And this time, what they did was they kept the tabby, but they introduced new versions of it. So they introduced the pillow tabby the following year, which is the quilted leather. And that quickly went
Mm.
viral on TikTok and then topped the Google Hot 100 list. So what they did was they effectively re-energized the tabby, got those sales from Gen Z, but now because they didn't wind down the whole style, now they have a modern day iconic bag.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, just obviously we've seen the change of how fast fashion has kind of made, larger fashion brands and ones that have been around longer have to react to that in real time. So the fact that it was like part of what they would have done is to get rid of the bag and then just
Yeah.
like slowly just like, take it away and then try to reintroduce something later. That's kind of wild that it would that was just like the way that they would do things, you know?
Yeah, totally. And like that was kind of how you could distinguish like outlet stuff. I mean, now they have different logos, or
Mhm.
maybe they've had different logos for a while now, but basically it was like the outlet would get the older styles and that's how it was. But now
Right.
in the recent years especially, they've done a really good job of differentiating the brands while also respecting all the brands.
Mhm.
So the next thing I'll say is so this positive flywheel, right? They didn't retire the tabby. They just introduced new versions of it, and now it's a beloved bag. So what they did was, I think they basically took the similar approach of this positive flywheel and launched in 2023. They launched CoachTopia. So CoachTopia is their sustainable brand where they use leftover Coach materials. It's all upcycled in some way, and it's because of the whole issue with, well, we don't want our stuff to end up in landfills, right?
Mhm.
Fast fashion is a problem.
Yeah.
And Coachtopia, I mean, they have different price points, but in general, it costs even less than Coach Outlet. And what's interesting here too is, so for the longest time, Tapestry didn't want like treated Kate Spade and Coach very differently, right? Like they treated those customer bases differently. They didn't even really want there to be any overlap, right? They wanted these to be distinct segments, which makes sense. But through Coach's research, they realized that, oh, I don't think we have as much overlap as we thought. So they estimated that the overlap between the Coach audience and the Kate Spade audience is probably only like 10%.
Hmm.
And so with that, they launched CoachTopia, which aesthetically kind of competes more with Kate Spade. Like they have a lot of whimsical styles, funky colors, mixed materials, and it's all stuff that, if you were to compare Kate Spade to any of the
Hmm.
brands, any of the Coach brands, it kind of looks most like Coachtopia. So they've been able to create a new sub brand, which people love, and it has its own meaning for why it exists. And yeah, that's kind of the story of Coach, right? They've figured out the ideal customer segment for them, how to appeal to them, how to keep talking to them, how to keep re-engaging them. And then plus they get that halo effect, right? Because it is always that appealing to younger people that's the trendy thing to do.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to do what the cool young people are doing. So
Mhm.
obviously that's going to lead to more growth.
How is it doing with other segments? So that was like with the
Yeah.
young people coming in and like,
Yeah.
buying the tabby and, Coachtopia. But yeah, how's it doing for millennials?
Yeah. So we'll see. So I mean, millennials are really into Coach too. Recent earnings, Coach said they acquired 1.5 million customers in North America during the quarter, over 6.8 million during the year, driven by a growing number of Gen Z and millennial consumers. this represents about 60% of new customers for the quarter and year.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so I love that. I mean, we've talked about this before, right? Like with Dyson, really finding a consumer segment that wasn't a thing, right? And it's just like, oh, shit, sorry. Sorry, we took our car in to be serviced and I haven't gotten a message yet. I love this story. I like the whole, I mean, we've talked about this before, right? We're like brands that are able to figure out a new customer segment. Like we talked about Dyson in one of our earliest episodes, that they went from like creating technology and innovation for the vacuum, realized that that would work for like hair products, became, you know, a dominant influence in like hair care, and then are using that back now with like the newest vacuum that they're coming out here with Coach. I mean, you might say that it's not, you know, innovative because it's just they're still creating handbags, but I think within fashion and like fast fashion in particular, the sustainability and like reusing products is such a huge unlock for how to fix having way too much stuff, right? I mean, we hear every year about like how much clothes ends up in landfills. So if this is like a way for them to create, you know, a new bag that people are buying because they want to be sustainable and they care about climate change and all that, then that's like an amazing way to kind of create a vertical from what they're already building. And then as for like the whole approaching Gen Z and, you know, going after them, I like that, you know, they figured out a customer segment. Like this is why it's so important to talk to like your consumers and figure out like what's actually happening, doing that social listening. Because if they had reacted the way that they had previously done with like other handbags, they would have gotten rid of the Tabby and then had to create a completely new brand, like awareness for like the Gabby. You're just calling it that, or that's what it would have been called.
That was an example that they gave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it's like a Coach example. But
Got it,
yeah,
got it, got it. Yeah. So they would have had to create a whole marketing flywheel for that from the beginning, as opposed to kind of relying on what was already existing there. So they were super smart to realize that they're like the Gen Z user would want that bag, like, you know, for like to celebrate getting a new job or to celebrate, you know, having it be like a celebration for a milestone. But then still trying to create a way that would appeal just for them, which is creating new colors, creating new textures, like a new bag that's like specifically for them, so that it wouldn't be like, oh, this is a millennial thing that we're kind of just updating for you, like, you know, take it or leave it, but it's still meant for like millennials. I think, you know, consumers want to know that you're taking the time to understand them and like make things for them and not just kind of, you know, trying to rebrand something that you're using for other people to sell to them, you know?
yeah, totally. And actually, on that note, I have some notes here. I think this is kind of the last info I have on
Mhm.
Coach, and then we can move on. Is to that point, there are two other bags that Coach makes that have bucked expectations in some way.
Hmm.
So the first one is the Coach's swing zip bag. It's one of their archival styles, and you know, one of the team members of Coach was doubtful of that commercial potential, right? But then in user testing, they actually found that Gen Z loved that bag. So they've kind of revived that too. But, you know, like on the art side of it, right? Like the human element, like they didn't think that people would want that bag, but through user testing, they realized they did, which is pretty interesting.
Mhm.
And, you know, we'll have an image of that
Yeah,
on
I'm
the
searching
video.
all these right now
Yeah.
because I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to see them.
I mean, and it looks like it's a pretty basic looking bag.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it just is, but it's practical, it has zipper all
Yeah.
around,
Right.
it's a shoulder bag, it's
Mhm.
practical.
Mhm.
But the other side of that is the company's now their most recent bestseller is a shoulder bag called the Brooklyn. Now, data would have shown that it would not have sold well. It has very little branding, the strap
Oh
isn't
yeah.
adjustable. Like, the
Mhm.
strap on the Tabby bag is adjustable, it can be
Mhm.
a crossbody or it can be a shoulder bag. The Brooklyn shoulder bag is just a shoulder bag, can't adjust it, and on the inside, like, it's not very functional. I think there might be, like, one pocket, but it's a slouchy it's a beautiful bag, but it's kind of a slouchy
Mhm.
style.
It's very
And
unique too, though.
yeah, so but what they were surprised by was had they used data to just inform this insight, they probably wouldn't have launched that bag because it wouldn't have the data would have shown otherwise. And it's the kind of thing where because they went for like the art of it, it's because the bag itself has a really beautiful silhouette
Mhm.
and people really love it. So it's an instance where the art of fashion and not really data wins.
I think, yeah, that's one thing. And I wonder if like the CEO who like, came up within the company and is kind of like remembers that it's more about like the aesthetic and like, especially within fashion, reaching this moment of being unique enough, but then also being, pretty or like attractive or, different. It's like the way to go. I mean, we talk about that in terms of the way that you're kind of putting yourself up against your competitors, right? Like, what's your unique insight, your unique angle for why your consumer would want your product over other ones? And I think when it comes to like fashion in particular, or like things that are like aesthetically pleasing, right? I mean, you might even bring into this like Le Creuset, the fact that it's such an aesthetic brand and like that's kind of like what they're selling. It makes sense that kind of taking these things of like we're social listening, and if we're finding the right type of consumer that likes that particular bag, it makes sense for them to like chase that instead of just like throwing it all away.
Yeah. Well, coach, if you're listening, feel free to send me a tabby bag. I'll take
Yeah.
the size in 26.
Too funny. Well, cool. Let's move on to the next one, which is kind of, taking on from coach and like how important the CEO is in terms of like making decisions. So McKinsey just came out with, or not just about a month ago, but I think it's like gaining more popularity right now because of everything that's been happening with CEOs across the board. Just the idea of CEO as like chief storyteller, and like what that means for companies going forward when they're trying to like hire a CEO, and like what it means for the CEO like now having to own like the image of the company, right? Like their words and actions, like it's not just PR. Now you're kind of like the face of the brand, and we've kind of had that, right? Where like there's been, CEOs that have kind of, gone beyond like the brand, Steve Jobs and Apple, Elon Musk and, Tesla, SpaceX and all that. But now the difference is that starting to be expected more and more. One recent example that I've been seeing all over my timeline is the Open Door CEO who like a group of board members and like activists on Twitter essentially got her fired because they didn't like how she was responding to their earnings call that just came out. One of the main things that they were mentioning was just like that she's not talking about the company or like the vision in a way that inspires confidence or that belief in her ability to lead the company. So that's going to be a thing I think going forward a lot, where the expectations are just like really high for people to be good at like the forward facing aspect of their job, to be transparent, consistent, and jump on big moments fast. Um, we've also seen that like a lot more is expected of them in terms of like jumping on like cultural moments. We've seen that like a lot of companies were jumping in on like the whole like woke thing. We're starting to question of like where are those decisions being made, right? So a couple stats that were interesting from the McKinsey article is that 6 in 10 people say that the CEO's actions shape their view of a company. That CEO LinkedIn engagement has grown 20%, and their follower growth has gone up 40%. Um, McKinsey says that the world's top CEOs spend 30% of their time on stakeholder engagement. And they called out a few CEOs that they think are doing it right. Satya Nadella of Microsoft made culture his number one job. He even created a culture cabinet to help him, create this. And then the CEO of Delta has started using earnings calls to reinforce the company's stance on voting rights. What does this mean, right, for companies going forward? I think it's not just big companies that have to, face up to this. It's a lot of smaller companies as well, where it's like you as like the face of the brand, need to like come up with the strategy for how you're going to respond to things as they occur. Are there moments that you can jump on, like as you as a human being, not as like the company like PR, right? So Jamie Dimon has his like annual letters for JP Morgan. Like I mentioned, Nadella has his cultural overhaul at like Microsoft, and you see him coming out a lot more whenever there's stuff happening about OpenAI. He's like, responding to like journalists, and he's gone on like a speaking tour to like talk about the involvement of Microsoft. Um, we're seeing a lot more CEOs taking stands on hot button issues. So Patagonia, the CEO is like well known for, going out there and talking about sustainability and like climate change, and how he's creating a company that wants to value the employees. It's a great way that companies can like look to how they're recruiting for like top employees, right? By the CEO kind of like putting out his persona as like being open and transparent, and like talking about the company, and like being able to sell the mission and the vision of the company. That's a great way for people to feel like, hey, I want to work for that company. And like we've seen that with Sam Altman right now with like OpenAI, Elon Musk for Tesla and SpaceX, Twitter. Even like when he first took over, there were like people volunteering to go like work there purely because he was being like brought on. So that's like something that I tell my clients as well, that like you putting yourself out there is also one of the best ways for you to bring in the type of people that you want to bring into your company to like fit the culture based on how you're talking about the company and promoting what you're building and how you're building it, and creating that like shared culture for the company.
Yeah, I suspect that as we've become more divisive among politics and everything, there's also this need that people have now to support the brands that they feel most aligned with.
Hmm.
And I think it makes sense in a world where there are so many brands,
Hmm.
right? Like if you don't agree with, or look, yeah, if you don't like Elon Musk, you don't have to be on Twitter. There are other social networks you can use. Now, that being said, I know that that's not the only reason one would choose to be or not to be on Twitter, but just an example of something. Like, now that there are just more things than ever before, people can kind of choose which brands they want to be associated with.
Hmm.
Like when Lululemon years ago
Yeah.
had that whole snafu with like the CEO saying, "My
Yeah.
clothes are for skinny people," or
Yeah.
like,
Maybe
like
some people shouldn't be wearing Lululemon, I think is what he
right. And
said.
so, but that's a very clear, to me, that's
Yeah.
very clear, like, oh, I'm never shopping here again. But for me, that was a reason to be like, great,
Hmm.
I'll take my money elsewhere. I
Hmm.
don't need to support this company. Right. And I'm just saying overall, like, so many choices. Consumers can vote with their dollars, right? It makes
Hmm.
sense that they would want to hear from a CEO that they like.
There's so much more pressure now. Like the CEO has to be like out there putting his face out there and talking about, stuff. I just think it's like adding another layer of like work that they have to do. So I've talked to like a few potential clients that are just like, I just don't have time to also do this while I'm like raising money and like building the company. And like, this is where, hiring somebody to help you do that can be beneficial. All these CEOs, I mean, if you think about it, they have to have PR people that are, also there for the company, but then help them learn what to say to the media, like learn what topics they should like jump on top of, like what they should be saying, right? Like a go direct model of like CEOs having to talk to the media and like kind of creating like the brand narrative that they want that will be beneficial to them, or going to like the media that's like friendlier to them. Now that this is happening, it's just going to become a little bit more standard for CEOs to have to be able to do this a little bit more. So if that's a thing that you want to do is like be a CEO and like run a company, then it's like learning how to speak in public, learning how to like communicate in a way that people understand what your mission and vision are, is going to be like the way that you're going to have to go, just so that you can bring more people on board to like what you're doing. And we've kind of seen this, right? Like within social media, and like the way that people interact a little bit more is like with videos and like photos and stuff. Like people just want to see that like a human is there, and it's not just, a faceless like corporation that's trying to sell you stuff. So it makes sense that we're kind of headed in that direction.
Yeah. All right. Should we roll into key takeaways?
So a couple things that stood out for me, the idea of the monoculture, how much people want to, interact with other people and have those like human moments. And this is like one of those ways, right? Like the fact that Taylor Swift has reached this level of fandom and being so well known, whether or not they're a fan, like I don't think that matters as much. The fact that people did jump on this and like wanted to participate in some way, like makes sense for moments that a lot of people will know about. It makes sense for companies to kind of jump in on that and try to like trendjack if they can, as long as they're kind of fitting it into like what they're doing or like how it fits into the brand in some like fun way. Like take a moment to think about how it could like really fit with you and not just like throwing the colors into like your brand or whatever.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, don't misconstrue a fun post for a marketing campaign,
Yeah.
right? And I say that there's a positive and negative way to look at that,
Yeah.
right? So which is to say that like, don't create a social media post and think, oh, that's a huge campaign, but
Hmm.
also don't call someone else's social media post a full-on campaign.
Hmm.
Sometimes these things aren't that deep. Sometimes it's a fun opportunity to create content. It's a
Hmm.
fun opportunity to connect with your audience
Hmm.
without actually selling something to them. So it's just, think about the moments that you want to create and celebrate with your audience.
Yeah. Yeah, let people have fun. What the
Yeah.
hell, man? Where there's so much like bad stuff happening all the time. I feel like this was actually a mostly positive thing that people were kind of like having fun with. So just let people have fun. Quit complaining.
Yeah. Yeah. And in deep diving into coach, I think one thing that really stands out for me is this notion of having the vision or having the visionary in your company
Mhm.
to help you know what to do with the data or the insights and to help you know what to do with your art or with the output. It's finding that nice balance of science and art, data and beauty, like, because it's not always about, our Gen Z said this, therefore we're
Yeah.
doing this now forever. It's, hey, the data tells us this. Here's what we know about this audience segment. Here are some hypotheses we have about this segment, and here's how we think we can reach them. These are some important moments or these are some good opportunities that we think we have to reach this segment, right? And I think that's a lot more powerful than just going all in on data and just saying like all of our decisions are data driven. It's no, they're not. It should be data informed. You should be thinking about your brand ethos. You should be thinking about, especially in the case of a consumer clothing brand,
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
think about the fashion that you want to create or the art that you want to make and then figure out how that sits within the data. So it's really just how do you own this strong vision for what you want to create, what you think you should be creating, and who you think you should be creating for.
Yeah. I think what stood out to me the most was how the data could have led them astray. Such a like huge and negative consequence. The fact that they were able to like find that one like demographic of like, Gen Zers that like valued the bag in and of itself. And then they like jumped in on that more so in order to sell to that specific user a little bit more. I think sometimes brands or companies want to sell to too many people by really narrowing in on this specific Gen Zer who like was a little bit more grown up and wanted like a timeless piece for to celebrate a specific event of like getting a job or a birthday. They were able to find more similarities in like who would actually purchase the bag. Sometimes it's like by narrowing in your audience you end up finding a bigger slice of the pie. So that was like really interesting to me. And I think a lot of companies can kind of like learn from that and like, realize that core fans who like a specific product because of what it looks like or what it means to them is so much more valuable than trying to go after a whole new like demographic of people.
Yeah.
For Chief Storyteller, I think this is another one of those like trend jacking things where CEOs have the opportunity right now to like jump in on conversations and like talk about like what's happening in their industry or their specific product or service, and how it applies to anything else that's going on. Go out there and learn how to speak to your target consumer. Use your own like social channels to start, and then kind of like expand from that. Use like the people that are already at your company, your PR people, comms people, marketing people, especially like marketers that are like social listening and have a pulse on your, target demo, like because they're on your social channels. Like figure out like what your consumer is talking about, what they want to hear from you, and then start testing out your messaging as you're kind of like putting that out there. And I think you'll find more success as people kind of like realize that you as a face of the brand are saying the things that they want to hear from someone who is like trying to sell to them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. All right, so that takes us out for the day. Thank you for listening, friends. If you like this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.